Hey guys, welcome to Executive Espresso. We've got an exciting conversation for you guys today. But before we get started, do me a big favor. Go over and share this live stream out to a friend, a family member, a business colleague, somebody that could really use a boost in the area of innovation, entrepreneurship, about creating some of that, what we're going to call today molecular magic, how to really get down to the molecules of success. So, talking to us about that today is David Lovejoy. He is at David Lovejoy X on X, and he's here hopefully to revolutionize your approach to business and creativity. We're going to talk today about how to merge different fields of business success. You know, often there's a transitional problem. You may have been successful in one field, basketball, whatever, just ask Michael Jordan. And then you try to do another field, baseball, and that success may not translate to the different field. We'll talk about that. David's going to share how he's adopted some of that molecular success in his life on his entrepreneurial journey. He's going to leave you guys with some tips, top level tips for entrepreneurs looking to innovate in many different ways. And we're going to wind it up with a powerful affirmation from David that can get you guys going. Stay tuned for our high octane tips at the end. I'm going to ask him about his current top mindset struggle, his best mindset hack, and something that he might have had wrong about success and about business when he first got started that he has since corrected in his life and in his business. So, hey, David, thanks for being on today. Tell us a bit about your journey. How did you get from point A to point B to where we're sitting here on a nice Friday morning enjoying, in my case, a nice cup of tea? What are you having?
I'm having a mocha espresso.
Oh man, I'm jealous. I'm jealous. That sounds so good. But tell us a bit about yourself and your journey.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on, Dr. Heath. A pleasure to be here. I often think of that Michael Jordan example myself. Maybe we could talk about that a little later when we're asking about the my own, like towards the end of my own journey. I think the real kind of pivot for me was when I was in Japan as a tour leader. I took small groups, usually around 14 people around the country for about 2 weeks at a time. It was mainly just me. There's a head office in the UK and a local office in Japan. But as we're traveling away from, we never stopped by the office. So for all intents and purposes, it was just me and a group for a couple of weeks. And the clients were many of them CEOs from all over the world, much more experienced than me. I got into tourism because of that old adage, do what you love, never work a day in your life. And I like to travel. So I thought I'd start there. The best part about the job by far was the people, the clientele. I learned more from them than I could have ever imagined from any school, from any book, from anything I would do on my own. And what was cool about it was I saw them learning as well. And this comes to the concept that I think we'll probably focus on a lot in this conversation, cross-pollination. So you'd have people from different countries and different industries surprised at how much of their knowledge and interests were transferable into a different person's kind of perspective, and germinate these ideas in them, like an accountant going to a lawyer, or a military personnel going to an actor, or someone in real estate talking to someone in architecture, et cetera, et cetera. And I was there for about 7 years. Occasionally led tours in Burma and Vietnam as well, but primarily I was based in Japan until the pandemic. And then I didn't want to twiddle my thumbs while we waited for things to return to normal. So I went to pursue an executive MBA. And I was just kind of thinking about what was that I really enjoyed about that job, where you're having this cross pollination, and how can I do that in a pandemic? What can I do? And that kind of led me into having conversations with people like yourself, starting a podcast of my own, and just exploring. I didn't have a roadmap, but one of my mentors has this expression that I think I was using, but I didn't have quite a succinct way of putting it at the time. But motion creates data. And so
Oh,
just by acting, And I don't want to get ahead of your questions here, but there's a couple of things
I
I
love
could talk
that.
about there.
I love that. Now going back to the conversations, I kind of came up with a molecular success here because I think people want to take too big of a bite and they think they can leap ahead far faster than what they really can. And they also look at other people who've experienced a lot of success and they think that they just moved ahead by big leaps when really you're just seeing the mountaintop. You're not seeing all the little bitty steps. And so, what I love about you're saying that you learned a lot of things from people you talk to is I think that success happens one conversation at a time. And there's a guy that you guys can check out, Sandler. He's the one that developed the Sandler sales system. And he had this motto that he wanted to get 99 no's. He wanted to get those 99 failures, so to speak, those no's under his belt as early in the day as possible because number 100, conversation number 100, is going to be the sale. Conversation number 100 is going to be the success. But really, if you think about it, that means that all of those small conversations that were no's leading up to that peak success were actually part of that success. So I do think that success happens, one conversation at a time, learning about other people. And so, what were some of the things that you learned over there? I mean, that sounds like a fascinating thing to do, just talking to people, learning their perspective.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. The mountain analogy and 99 no's leading to the yes. You can't really see it at the moment, but looking back, you can see every single thing made you who you are and led to where you are. What did I learn? I mean, that's obviously many things. If I were to focus on a few, I would say that things are a lot more malleable, permeable than I realized. We kind of map and orient ourself in an environment, literally or figuratively, by defining things. And this is a wall. That's an architect. I am this. You are that. And at best, that's only a fragment and a slice of time in a transient perspective. You probably know better than I. There's a lot more to it than that. So it's really it's complex. It's I don't know if it's limitless, but it seems like there's a lot more of an adventure there if you want.
Ah,
Um, that was one thing I learned. And so the funny thing, I'll try to keep this concise because obviously it could go off the rails really quick. But um, I mentioned when I started tourism, like why I did it, but I had this imposter syndrome when I started out because I had no background in tourism. Like when you start something new, it's just that it's something new. So how do you position yourself as any sort of having some sort of value, charging a fee for your services, like the whole kind of story that goes into that. How do you define it? And then what do you need to do in order to improve and track kind of areas for improvement, et cetera? And having those conversations, like you said, really helped because as I'm talking to people in other industries, like when you first got into this field, did you have imposter syndrome? Absolutely. Everyone said yes. There wasn't as I recall, there were no exceptions. There might've been one or two that I forgot, but by far, I would think that everyone has imposter syndrome when they first start out. And because I was having those conversations, I was learning a lot and I was trying things. I started to try things before I felt comfortable trying them instead of waiting for quote unquote perfection or waiting for quote unquote mastery to
or,
start.
or waiting for the discomfort to go away.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things I did was created a business plan for entering the South Korean market, like entering an entirely new country, because I saw a lot of kind of opportunities, parallels to what some of the clients were talking to me about in their own companies and opportunities in the region. And it turned out to be advantageous for the company, and they actually now start doing tours in South Korea. And it's like, wow, you can just do that. And so I think, going back to the Michael Jordan analogy, I honestly, I thought that was interesting you brought it up because I often think about that because he's a legend in basketball, perhaps the legend. And even if beyond basketball, I don't know that there's a higher legend with that kind of status. And he's a goat, the goat. I mean, and then baseball was a little bit of an embarrassment, if it's fair to say, relative to who he was. It's like watching a god bleed or something. And I was wondering, like, what was that? His work ethic and everything. Like, how did that happen? My guess, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this, is that he was doing it for the wrong reasons. Because I think we don't really have limits, but there are like signposts. So like maybe baseball wasn't the thing he was supposed to do, but maybe he could have used his expertise in basketball in another way and cross-pollinated that way. So just because it didn't work in baseball doesn't mean cross-pollination doesn't work. It might mean that there was different reasons involved. I'm curious.
Well, I think that's a great question, and I've actually never really thought deeply about this. I thought, well, he tried this thing, he was amazing. He tried this thing, he wasn't. But I think that people get off track when they think that Michael Jordan's greatest gift to the world is his basketball expertise. I think that is a word I like to use, underthinking. I think that's ignoring important aspects of the situation. I think that Michael Jordan's greatest gift to the world is his inspiration. Now, you can't get inspiration without perspiration. So you really have to let people see you sweat. And so many people don't want to do that, you know. So I think that, and I'm glad you brought that up. I hadn't thought about this, that him letting us see him sweat and become successful at basketball, and then him letting us see him sweat and then flop at baseball. I think probably, if people think about it properly, it's the flop in baseball, which is probably the most inspiring thing he ever did. And so I'm not sure that's a failure at all. I think it shows people in your business and in my business that it's really okay to fail. And I read a quote the other day: if you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough.
Yeah, very true. That's a good. I think there's another detail there that I missed. Because he was so great at basketball, he went straight to the pro leagues in baseball. And perhaps he should have gone to like AAA or something a little bit underneath the same
Yeah,
level.
yeah.
But because he was already like, he's pro at this, he should be pro at that kind of thing. And because he had marketability, perhaps it helped the MLB, Major League Baseball, having him in there. But so that's another thing, like thinking about what is the lesson here. Maybe the lesson isn't to quit baseball. Maybe the lesson is to just, humble myself a little further for a moment and put some of that same grind and grit and sweat, like you said, into perfecting this sport. And then
Yeah,
no doubt he could have
that's
done it.
so very true, and I love these fluid conversations we're having, guys. None of this is scripted. We're just like off script here, and I love it because it's bringing to mind some of the multi-million-dollar clients that I have, that they want to create a legacy for their company. I don't know if you guys know the statistics about that, but you can look it up. I don't know them offhand, but the percentage of businesses that go from generation one, where they had that multi-million-dollar success, and then they pass it on to the kids, what percentage of businesses survive, and then the kids passed on to the grandkids, what percentage survives? Not much. And then the great grandkids, well, your multi-million dollar business is probably gone at that point. And if you look back over history, not a lot survive. So one of the smartest things I've seen happen, and I recommended it to so many clients, is don't start your kids at the top. They don't graduate from school and become, high school and become the VP of finance or marketing or something. I mean, they don't know how the business works, unless they've been running it from day one. And so to your point, David, I love that, because I think the best thing that parents could do is start kids where they know the whole business inside and out. As I'm speaking, I know of a CEO right now that was a client of mine that started in a business in high school. His family didn't own it, but he started in a business in